Alright, over the past couple tutorials, it seems like we've really started getting somewhere with encapsulating the logic we tested earlier into these objects so that we have something a lot more reusable. And before long, we will add this to our game writer object so that we don't even have to type it. We'll have some methods that just automatically do this for us. Save a whole lot of time that way. One thing we haven't done yet, though, is animate the player. Let's see, we got that moved over. What else might be? Oh, we can take this one out. So taking out the commented outlines, but we aren't quite able to take out everything from the player. So just a recap on the last one. At the end of the last tutorial, we've got our game that the encapsulated object handles everything for our background here, and the encapsulated object for our character or player brings it in and moves it around, but it's not animated yet, so it'd be nice to get that animation in. And when we did this before, we just kind of set up this loop, just every pass through the loop, we just check the frame number and change the frame. But this object is set to take in an array. So, well, we could create an array that has the names of every file in here, which is a lot of typing. And part of the thing we're trying to set up here is to avoid all that typing. Oh, I'm going to move this Blender file out of here, so I'm going to hit Control X and come up to just the regular image level and paste that in there. So now our folder has only the sprites. All the animation images we have for our sprites so far are in that one folder. And that's only 2 animations. If we have more, that's going to take even more typing. We need a way to quickly get that into a list. So what I'm going to use a list comprehension. I put that over here by itself just to quickly go over that in case some people haven't seen a list comprehension before. You've likely seen these parts, just not in this order. So obviously this reference is assigned some array. Surely seen that part before. But then this is a little different. So this is the thing we actually want. So ultimately we want the images / sprite, which is our directory. So we go in the images file from where we're at, and then in the sprite. So we want to go to that directory plus a file, but we need a way to get the files. And that's where our list comprehension comes in. So we've set up a loop here. This part should look like the first line in a loop, kind of familiar. The biggest difference is we do it all in one line inside of initializing our array. Instead of creating an empty array and walking through a for loop afterwards, our list comprehension just does it all at once. So the result we want, the first thing is the result we actually want, what we're going to fill this array with. So it's going to be a string that has the directory plus any file names we find. And from the OS, we can import list directory, and os.path is a built-in thing in Python where we could have isFile and join methods. We'll need those. So this part is saying we're going to walk through this directory, and list directory just pulls a list of everything in there. And then we're going, if it is a file, if it's not another folder, if it's actually a file, not a folder, we're going to join the thing from this directory into the next file in our for loop, and then that file in the for loop is what actually gets put into our list. Hopefully all that made sense. So to see the result of this, I call this test sprite array. So run that Python, and I put spaces in, so I gotta have quote marks. Test sprite array.py. So I run that, and so we get an array that has images / sprite. Oh, missing the slash, but then characters underscore idle underscore 001 dot ping. So I missed a slash in here. There we go. So let me try that again, make sure it's getting the right thing. So our array is filled with images slash sprite slash character idle 001 dot ping. Images slash sprite. So everything, all the sprite images brought into a list very, very quickly. List comprehensions are really quick too. And the nice thing is it's all in one line. So I'm going to copy that. And I'm going to, instead of in our constructor here having sprite equals a list with only one thing in it, I'm going to have sprite equals this list comprehension. So now when we call that, it should bring in all of our images, which aren't going to be called yet. So I'm going to print them just to make sure they're there. Player.getSprite should return that list. So if I come over here, clear host, and then run our file here. Oh, before I do that, better import the libraries that we need for working through a directory. So list comprehensions, that's built right in. But since this particular list comprehension is looking at another directory and pulling files out of that, we need these other libraries. So I'll paste that in and come over here and give that a test. And then just, a simple echo to see if it works right now before we go in and start trying to manipulate all the animations before testing it. So Python test2.py, it's going to run, and now we can see our list is a whole bunch of surfaces, a whole bunch of Pygame surfaces. So it looks like that those sprites are set up and ready to go. Whoops, I didn't mean to close that. Well, that's fine. So now we can go ahead and start manipulating those animations. Get the animation thing. Whoops. Get the animation stuff encapsulated into our object. And whenever we load sprites in, we'll just load a list comprehension looking through the directory we say all our sprite images are in. So now gameObjects.py, and in the render method, we need to decide what to render if there's more than one sprite in our list. And I just realized I might have set this up incorrectly, because we need to check the frame to determine which one to play, which image to play. And we put the frame way down here. So I'm going to cut it from there and bring it back to the parent object. So then self.frame. Do that. Yeah, and then our getter and setter for the frame should probably be done up top. So I'm going to pause the video while I move that up there. Well, after a little more thinking, I realized I don't want the frame in the object at all. I just want that as part of that method, and then we'll pass that in. So render, and then we'll pass in the frame with a default value so that it's an optional thing to pass in. That way we don't have to go back and adjust what we already did. So then our else statement, sorry about that little bit of confusion. So took the frame out of the character 2D object. I'm not going to ask for that at all. So no more getter, no more initialize, getter, or setter for it. And not going to use the frame at all as part of the object. Going to pass that in every single time we call the render method if we want it to change. So our else here will be game.blit self.__sprite for whatever frame it is, and we want to pass this in every time in the game because that's going to change. Right? Every animation of the game might be different. So this player had two 20-frame animations, so we'll pass in 0 through 19 if he's standing still, I think, and then we'll pass in 20 through 39 if he's moving. So yeah, and then at the XY coordinates we pass in. Hopefully that makes sense. So we're passing in a frame, the frame we want to play, and we use the list comprehension to get all of those frames in at once. So when we come down here and do our player.render, we want to pass in a frame number. So I'm going to, so we still have this counter. So I'm going to do counter mod 20, which I think was the idle animation, the first 19. So let's give this a test and see if that worked. Python test2.py. Oh, let me check and see what went wrong. Well, it appears I misspelled sprite. Game objects. Well, the only place I typed sprite was right here, so that hopefully that was the only issue. Load it up. Oh, and there is our character standing there idling. So now we can set up a condition to determine if our character needs to move or not, and remove this print statement. Where was I printing that? That actually seeing the character in the idle animation is a much better check. So now, and we can set up this is walking boolean to tell if our character is moving or not, which is a boolean that we have encapsulated into our player object. We called it is moving for the more general sense. So instead of is walking, we'll say is moving. And so here we need self.isMoving with self.getIsMoving equal to true. So we'll return that value, and if that is true, we'll set it to true when the character is moving. So copy that, paste that here, and here, and here, which should be true when the character starts moving. And then over here, it will be player.getIsMoving, and we want to set it to false. Wait, what am I thinking? That should be setIsMoving. SetIsMoving to false, and we don't need any equal stuff. Control copy. Well, I'm going to paste that everywhere and pause the video because down to about a minute to keep it in the time limit. Okay, so I just did that quick correction. That should be a setter, not a getter. And there, in our object, when we move, set it to true, and when the key goes up, set it to false. So let's give this a test run. So it hasn't crashed yet, but we need to set our condition. Okay, so I have to talk quick to meet the time limit, but I put in a ternary operator, which in parentheses the value of false, comma the value of true, and then in square brackets the condition. So an if-else structure in one line, just to make it easier to pass in, and you can see that works. So that's a ternary operator if you haven't seen it before. Value of false, value of true, the condition in square brackets, just an if-else structure in one line. And I'm out of time. See you in the next video.